Hey, what's going on, guys? Phil here. So, this morning we did a stream of a modified version of Zalae's Discard Warlock. I just wanted to go through and compare his original list to my list, and then talk about, how things went in our matches, because I think that this archetype has a lot of viability. Um, and I think that while it changes your game plan a little bit, cutting the cards to get the quest and its little package in there seemed really strong. There weren't any games where like those cards seem useless. Essentially, this is his original list. This list he got to, top something legend, top 100 or something. Obviously, it's really good. It follows the same sort of game plan. It can go super aggressive. You control versus aggro decks because you have Double Shriek, Double Defile, Doomsayer, and Hellfire. But aside from that, you can go pretty aggro. You can play Doomguard on 5 because you don't have to worry about what you discard, because essentially whatever you discard can come back now with Soul Warden. So Doomguard almost has no downside, as long as you have Soul Warden or you don't need those resources immediately. You have Skull, so that sometimes pulls out Doomguard, sometimes pulls out early Void Lords. Big tempo swing, pretty good. Gul'dan, just because it's Gul'dan. If you're running a deck that's running, Doomguard, Void Lord, you should be running Gul'dan. And then you still have the opportunity to get turn 3, turn 4 Mountain Giants, depending on how, the coin flip in the beginning goes, if you go first or second. So you can put on a lot of really early pressure with Mountain Giants and Doomguards. Against aggressive decks, you have tons of board clears, and then your board clears aren't completely useless in controlling matchups, because Shriek still allows you to discard. Hellfire can be used for burst. Defile, it's only two of you kind of need it in your to face off against the aggro decks and control it. Sometimes sets up weird situations. So Defile is just a good card. His original list, I don't have a lot of experience actually playing, but the Tal'Daram seems a little bit odd. It can be used, if you pull out a Void Lord or if you pull out a Doomguard, something big like that. I guess you can use it on opposing threats as well, but it doesn't seem too necessary. In his video on, revealing the deck, he said that if you were trying to budget replace stuff, you could probably get rid of Tal'Daram and throw in something else. So this was his original list. It's obviously pretty good. He was mentioning in his video that Soulfires will get worse with time because people will start to play around them more. And so when I was looking for what cards to cut to get the slots for Lakari Sacrifice, Cataclysm, and High Priestess Jeklik, I kind of took, that as inspiration. So I wasn't sure whether or not to cut double Soulfire or just play one of. I do think that one of is pretty good. It gives you an answer to Henge Clan Thug early on. 4 damage, especially in the late game with your hero power, means you can deal 7 something. That's pretty big. And then occasionally it comes up as burst, and it's also a discard if you require that for your quest. So I think one of is probably the right answer. You could remove it and put in maybe another like good early game card, but your early game is already so strong with this deck. I'm not really sure where, what you would cut that for, but you could definitely consider cutting this Soulfire. I decided to cut one in place of Lakari Sacrifice. I cut a Shroom Brewer for a Cataclysm, and I'm not actually positive what the Tal'Daram. I cut the Tal'Daram for the High Priestess as well. Essentially, this just gives you an early option against very aggressive decks or against very slow decks. You can Lakari Sacrifice. Turn 4, you can Cataclysm, discard a bunch of cards. If you happen to have Jeklik in your hand, then you get, those copies back, which is a problem that Discard Lock has had in the past where, if you go off with Cataclysm, you kind of lose all of your hand, so you lose pretty much all your gas. But with Jeklik, at least you have something playable, and it's not an awful minion by itself. 4 mana, 3/4, Taunt, Lifesteal. It feels a little bad, but it's not, super understated. The Lifesteal is very handy, especially in this deck where you're tapping a lot, and, so you lose health like that. So that just gives your Cataclysm plays more consistency. Also, in the late game, you're able to make, 3, 4, 5 copies of this, and even though they're small minions, it puts enough pressure on that it baits removal. especially in conjunction with the quest reward. So I had a match earlier, which I think I'm going to highlight in a separate video, where I was against a warrior, where we played around all of his AoE really, really well, and were able to use the quest reward along with all these infinite Jeklicks to really, take a board position that shouldn't have been super good for us and put on just enough pressure to bait removal to be able to close out the game. So yeah, final thoughts. I think that it's only 3 card slots, and the Soulfires are already both cuttable, so that's 2 slots that you can get rid of if you want. The Tal'Daram doesn't seem necessary, so that can be your third if you want to throw in a Shroom Brewer. So you can have the recursion effect there. But this package for only this deck already runs a bunch of discard cards, so it's really only 3 cards that you need to be running that are semi suboptimal. Seems really, really powerful. The quest reward can mess up with your Gul'dan, but there's lots of games where unless you go really quickly with the I guess I'm gonna have to go Lakari Sacrifice, Cataclysm, get this quest reward out early to keep on the pressure, that kind of game plan, you can typically just wait to play the quest reward until after you Blood Reaver to get all the good demons back and not flood your board with 3/2s. And then after you Gul'dan, that typically requires a board clear, and then after that you play the quest reward, and then they've already used some board clears throughout the game, and those 3/2s will just infinitely give you value and trading power. So I think that it helps shore up the late game. That this deck, it already has a fairly strong late game, but it's pretty susceptible to just a big brawl or something like a Twisting Nether, anything kind of like that once you bring back your demons, and this gives it more staying power after that. The 3/2s are surprisingly strong, so yeah, I really like the idea of including the quest. Cataclysm is a decent board clear for Hail Mary situations. Sometimes, Hellfires won't do, so that is not a card you specifically need to use with, like, in conjunction with the quest, but the quest inclusion makes it a lot better. And High Priestess Jeklik, you already run a couple discards with Shriek and Soulfire and Doomguards. It just seems like a natural fit into the deck. So I just wanted to, put out my final thoughts after playing some games with it this morning in a much shorter video so that, you don't have to watch an hour and 40 minutes of gameplay to get final thoughts on this idea. Um, Again, I don't have much experience with his original list. I didn't try out Tal'Daram that much. But this feels, from the eye test, like it's going to be more powerful, especially if you go back into some of the games that we played and look at how well the 3/2 imps allow you to use your resources. It makes it really, really easy to just outvalue someone over time. So yeah, thanks guys for checking this out. In the description box will be the link to all the gameplay if you want to check that out. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, and follow us on the Twitch and on Twitter. We just made a Twitter, so if you want to go follow that, that's cool too. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.